record because I always forget to do that. I usually start jamming and then I forget to
have it auto record.
Yeah, well, I do that too, but we were bullshitting beforehand. So
oh yeah, fair enough. Yeah, true. Good point. Yeah.
Good stuff.
All right, guys.
If you want to do the formal intro again, since we do have a few people that jumped on, but just maybe
for sure. Yeah, exactly. So basically, guys, what we're going to talk about is increasing profitability and earnings per session with conversion revenue optimization. The 30 days is in here because right now we're 30 days-ish away from Q4, right? A little bit less, actually. Should put like 23 days or something. So I want to give you guys the framework and foundation for how to start split testing and increasing conversion rate before Q4 really starts and ahead of BFCM. All right. So quick intro. I'm Ethan Bence. I founded 4080 Marketing. Basically, we're an e-commerce marketing consultancy. So we work with over 30 million a year in ad spend. But really, like I said, the entire point of all of this is we want to make sure that the traffic that you are getting to your site is going to be converting it as high of a rate as possible. All right. So work with e-com brands to improve bottom line profitability. One of the kind of like the key factors here is we're business owners first, marketers second, and advertisers third. All right. So the reason why I say that is because it's not just like, oh, spend more money on Facebook ads because we've talked about Facebook ads, or, oh, don't spend on Google because, it's against our, our marketing pitch. No, everything needs to be taken with context into consideration, right? Context needs to be in consideration of everything that's within the context of your business and your customers. We're marketers second because if Google's performing better, we'll tell you to spend more on Google, right? If you should really be focusing on email marketing, go focus on email marketing. And then advertisers third, again, because, I still have paid ads. So basically, we're here to help you navigate the turbulent waters.
Yeah.
And that being said, let's get into it. So quick overview of our agenda. Like I said, I want to give you an initial framework to start your CRO journey to be able to split test, increase conversion rates, average order value, and profits going into Q4 and maximize that, Q4 buyer intent, right? So we're going to go over a quick current landscape overview. I'm going to speed through that because you guys are probably already painfully familiar with the current landscape. We're going to talk about conversion rate optimization and why conversion revenue optimization is superior. All right. We're going to talk about split testing, why it's a requirement, the ins and outs, and how to analyze them. And we're going to go through a couple of case studies. Then we're going to do open Q&A and some site audits. So like I said, I want to make sure that if you guys have questions on your site, if you guys want some split test ideas, et cetera, we can do that at the end, have your sites ready to go, and we can dive into those. Like Will said, any questions during it, just shoot them in the chat. And then Will, if you could keep an eye on it, because like I said, if I'm going through, I might miss some stuff, but if you guys have any questions, just tell us to shut up or tell me to shut up, really. And we'll get into it.
Yeah, you're good.
All right, so that being said, landscape overview. You guys know ads are expensive. There's increased competition in e-com, higher buyer sophistication. So that this means basically that every single brand needs to work harder for the conversions that they're getting. And that's fine, right? But it is what it is. So most brands have shifted to focusing on profitability, especially, beginning of this year. And especially now people are really focusing on profitability. One of the highest ROI and lowest time commitment ways to do this is to make your traffic more efficient. So if traffic is already coming to the site, let's just convert more of it. If we are getting 3 people out of 100 to convert right now, right? So 3 people out of 100 visitors convert. If we can get that to 4 people, we're not just increasing by 1, right? We're increasing by 33%. So multiply each of those numbers by 100, for example, and now we're getting 400 purchasers instead of 300 purchasers. This is possible. And it's even, in a lot of cases, it's almost inevitable if you start doing the testing, because this is such low hanging fruit and very, very few people, even, large mid 7-figure, 8-figure plus brands do not properly split test and do not properly implement conversion revenue optimization, let alone conversion rate optimization, let alone conversion revenue optimization.
Even huge 9-figure brands like.
Yeah, man. I know, literally. I'm sure. I'm sure you guys know, right? Yeah. But if you think of, some of your guys' clients, some of the people in the group, et cetera, even mid 8 figures, not split testing properly, which we're going to talk about, but
nor even upsells, cross sells, like
I know
any sort of like maximizing. Yeah, it's wild.
And so this is, once you start hitting a certain point, it does become a game of inches, because 1% difference when you're doing 30K a month is not really that big of a deal. A 1% difference when you're doing, 100K, 200K, 500K a month, it starts to become a little bit of a big deal, right? And then get that up to 10%, et cetera. So, all right, that's the landscape. Let's talk about conversion rate optimization. Let's talk about why it matters. So right now, you guys feel free to put this in the chat. What effects does your business feel if your overall increase in revenue, overall increase in conversion rate, Freudian slip there, increases by 15%? All right, so what effects does the business feel?
Don't be scared. Don't be shy.
Start listing them off.
Come on, guys. Let's tee them up a little bit better. So do you mean like from a revenue perspective? You basically mean from a revenue perspective.
So there you go. Maddie says he made 15% more revenue. Good. Keep going though. Right? So remember, out of 100 people, if 15% more people are converting, what else does that mean? Let's think about some secondary effects. Maddie goes better CPA.
Yeah,
exactly.
CPA profitability allows you to actually spend more because now your CPA will come down.
Yep.
Probably more intimate relationship with customers. So LTV over a long period of time will probably increase as well.
Yep. Okay, there you go.
Now the answers
All
are
right,
flowing.
people are waking up. So there you guys go. Better CPA, exactly. More profit, exactly. That's 15% more profit,
Yep.
right?
Imagine
It's
what
50
that is. Like you were saying, imagine it 10 grand a day and spend. What that does like to the overall profitability of the business versus $500 a day and spend. Like
That's exactly
it's actually pretty massive. We're talking potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars here.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, easily.
And so Will, here's another one that I really like. So Luke says more money to spend for new sales. That's great. Exactly. That means we can spend more, take more market share, et cetera. Antonio, I really like Antonio's answer. More back-end potential sales. There we go. So if we have 15% more customers, that means we have 15% more opportunity to sell them again.
Yep.
LTV.
Yep.
All right. LTV, opportunities for repurchases. And if you have a consumable or you have the ability for a subscription, now we start saying, wait a minute, I talk about something that's called valuating, right? So let's say, for example, I'll use an extreme example. Let's say your first product is $10 and then your backend product is $10,000. All right. What really matters is how many people you get on that $10,000 product. So your profits rely on the volume of buyers that are coming from that 10K product, right? It's not necessarily the profitability of the $10 product. It's the volume of buyers coming from the $10,000 product because there is 100 times difference between those two. All right. So that's exactly right. You guys are on the right track with it. It's the same thing with AOV, right? 20% higher AOV, holding CPA the same means the same thing, 20% more revenue, more profit. Now it's not more customers necessarily, but when you do both of these things at the same time, you get a compounding effect, right? So increasing conversion rate and AOV, it's not 20 plus 20, it's 1.2 times 1.2. So you actually get a 44% increase, not just a 40% increase. So you get 4% for free. Fun fact that you guys might know, but if you do that 3 times, so if you increase your traffic by 25%, if you increase your CVR by 25% and your AOV by 25%, you've actually doubled your business, right? Roughly, it's about 96%. Okay, cool. So what do you guys think CRO entails? Well, we can skip past this, but most people say changing button colors, split testing CTAs, changing fonts, the design of the page, right? Changing font sizes. It's not incorrect, but there's a better, faster way to do it. So these tests require a lot of sessions to attain statistically significant results. And typically the conversion rate increases are small. Not always, right? You guys are going to notice that pretty much everything that I say is always going to be asterisked, right? Because I can think of a million other scenarios where it would be. But in general, the smaller changes will lead to smaller increases in conversion rate, which means to have a powerful test and to have a statistically significant result, you need a lot of sessions. Cool. A lot of sessions means a lot of traffic, which means expensive in a long time for a potentially small gain. It's dumb.
Are you going to touch on like your statistical significance point?
Oh yeah, for sure. And if you guys have more questions on that and we don't go over it again, just remind me. Okay, so again, traditional CRO here. So in our opinion, this is the wrong way to do it. So it's testing slowly for like a 2% increase, right? Now, that being said, most brands don't even do this at all, right? So even the big ones, most brands are not split testing. So something is better than nothing. Again, other common problems. So increasing conversion rate without factoring in AOV is pointless. Again, let's have a 99% off sale and your conversion rate's going to skyrocket. Well, that's not really, we're missing a variable in there. So there needs to be a better way to make traffic convert more and buy more. And we call that conversion revenue optimization. So this is, we want to improve the conversion rate and the revenue that it drives. So what we want to do in conversion revenue optimization is drive large increases in our golden metric, earnings per session. Right? We want to take a direct response marketing approach combined with user experience improvements. So the traditional CRO, which is, again, people think of it, the perception is button color testing, is moving menus, etc. It's all valid. And sometimes, again, since my background is in direct response and in a lot of cases like info marketing, I sometimes like make jokes that like, oh, changing a button color is stupid, but it is valid, right?
The design one is my favorite though. Like, oh,
yeah.
we had the team to redesign the page. Who the fuck cares?
It does exactly.
Yeah.
And further though, as you know, well, and I'm sure that you guys know too, but in a lot of cases, ugly converts better.
Yeah.
Right. There's a reason for it. So again, we do this by creating irresistible offers, using direct response messaging that speaks about the customer, not the brand. We're going to talk about this. Looking for hidden market segments, avatars, etc., that buy without us having to market to them. Okay. We call that market segmentation essentially. All right. So we're more concerned with driving greater increases faster than knowing exactly why our test worked or failed. And it's a faster route to statistical significance. So again, briefly, I would rather know, or I would rather have a 30% increase in earnings per session, be making 30% more revenue for every single session, 30% more profit for every single session that comes to the site, and not really be sure if it's because the headline was better, if it was because the offer was better, than having a 2% increase in revenue per session and knowing that, oh, well, great, red versus green, green really did convert better, right? I would rather have the second one and work backwards to figure out why.
Quick question from my side.
Yeah.
Do you take the approach, because I've never asked you this directly, he who spends the most to acquire a customer wins? Like, I could give a shit if the CPA is $100 or $200 if the profitability is where I want it to be.
That's exactly right. So it doesn't matter. The only time where it really comes into play, and this is kind of like a specific contextual thing, is, is he who can spend more to acquire that customer wins. At that point, it's really just a cash flow thing. It's can you make the cash flow cycle work? Which if you can, then yeah, you know what I mean? Absolutely. What you want to do is you want to build up your tolerance to be able to spend more. Doesn't mean that you have to. It means that you can, and having that optionality is critical.
I like that view of it. Build up the tolerance.
Yeah.
Right. Because like you ran front end offers to your stuff for probably the last 2 years. Like, you know that as well as anyone. Like your tolerance was higher than probably most people in the group. Right. 100%. So like for anybody that's listening, like Ethan's just willing to spend more to get the customer that the rest of you may or may not be willing to, because he's built up his tolerance in order to spend more, and he's just playing a different game.
That's
so
exactly
I wanted to stress that.
We can go over another quick example. One of our clients sells a low ticket front end product for $17 and his back end membership is $37.
Yeah.
All right. He can afford to, whenever he first started working with us, he wanted to absolutely be profitable on that first acquisition. Dumb, right? Yeah. Because if you want to be profitable on that, what you're saying is, okay, I'm capping my spend at like say 200 a day, just as an example. Well, now he's spending 3,000 a day. He's losing $13, $12 or $13. Actually, he's breaking even the past month or so, but he'd be fine to lose $12 or $13 on acquiring that first customer because his back-end LTV is almost $300 on that member. So would you want to lose $13 to get 300 or to get 90, 100? Absolutely. Absolutely. So you got to start thinking of it like that. All right. And again, if you don't have that LTV, that's something you want to be building in, but that's a topic for a different day. All right. So let's talk about earnings per session. Our golden metric, like I said, is conversion rate times average order value. That's it. All right. Really simple. The interpretation of this is the average amount of revenue we expect from one session to our site. So one kind of cool way to back into ROAS from this is you take your revenue per session and divide it by your cost per click. So if you make $3 per click and you're spending $1 per click, there you go. 3x
Are you
ROAS.
looking for a 2 to 3x CPC versus EPS?
I mean, of course, well, it depends, right? So in Ryan Kelly's case, the guy that I just mentioned, of the low ticket front end product, he's looking for a 1x, right? So
Yeah.
CPC versus EPS, he'll take a
Yeah.
1.
Mhm.
So it is kind of brand dependent. It's kind of just like what your ROAS versus your LTV is going to be.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of people do look for that 3, especially factoring in LTV, just because that's what acquirers look for. So if you're looking to exit your brand, a 3x LTV versus CAC is kind of what
Yep.
people look for.
Yep.
Higher is better, of course, but okay. So also known as, right, and sometimes I'll mix these up. You'll see this elsewhere. Revenue per session, earnings per click, again, slightly different. Revenue per user, again, also slightly different because one user could have multiple sessions. But again, sometimes people kind of mix this up. So if you have a 3.5% conversion rate, a $49 AOV, your earnings per session, 1.71. All right. So let's talk about split testing. So again, if you've been in marketing for more than a month, you're probably rolling your eyes at me, but don't just kind of like have your eyes glaze over with this. 90% of brands do not do this properly. Like Will said, 9-figure brands not doing this properly.
Or at
So
all.
running 2 at, or at all. Exactly right. Exactly. So sometimes you'll hear this of like, oh no, we ran a landing page in January, and then we ran a variant of it in March, and the one in January just crushed it. That is not a split test, right? You don't know that. Running 2 ad sets to one page and 2 to another variant of the page is not a split test. All right. So here's a question. Which one of these do you guys think would win? This homepage, hero section, or this homepage, hero section? 1 or 2? Which one do you think would win?
Can you show the first one again real quick?
Yep. 1, 2. I feel like an optometrist right now. All right, let's see what we got here.
I'm
Everyone
gonna
says
just,
2.
because everybody said 2, I'm gonna say 1. I'll just take the outlier here.
Okay,
On
now
my
you guys got to
side.
know that if I'm asking this, you guys got to know that this is a loaded question with how I set
Yeah.
it up from the slide before. Let me ask you this. This one was run during Black Friday. This one was run during January. Now which one won? Right? So we're building intuition for traffic quality mattering, seasonality mattering, right? So the answer really is it completely depends. If you ran one of these during Black Friday and one of them during January, where this one doesn't even make sense in January, right? Well, of course, this one's going to win. What we're finding is we need to control for the variables of traffic quality, seasonality, time of week, right? Time of month. We need to control for all these variables as best as we can. Statistics is an imperfect science, right? It is not perfect. We never know anything for a fact. We just have very strong evidence to prove something. Well, rather to disprove something in a lot of cases, right? So imagine running one variation during BFCM, one during July, right? Very clear example here. The best way to split test this is software. Google Optimize, it is free. It plugs in with Google Analytics. It will take you 15 minutes to set up, and that is more than enough to get you started. All right. Don't worry about VWO. Don't worry about like Optimizely. Google Optimize and Google Analytics. That's all you need.
Agreed on
So
that as well. Like,
what was that?
Agreed on that. We've
Oh,
used
yeah.
it for, yeah.
Yep. All right. So, and here's an example of what Google Optimize will look like. Here are the results you're going to get. Variant 1 did, and by the way, variant 2. So the second version, it did do better. But you know, I had to prove my point there. $6.07 earnings per session versus a $5.14 earnings per session, 94% probability to be best. So there you go. Right.
Was this the test from before with the cacao, or is this a different?
That's exactly right. That's this.
Okay.
Yep. So this versus this did it did better, right?
Yeah,
about 20% better.
Yeah.
20% more revenue, 20%, right? More profit. This is free money. So we're going to actually go over why that test worked and how you can do it, because one of the best, easiest, lowest lift or like lightest lift tests you can run is on your homepage. Okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
So I've heard that Facebook kind of like raises your CPMs if they catch you're using something like VWO or Google Optimize. Is that a rumor or is that true?
So I never really noticed it from a CPM perspective. A couple of years ago, if you use the split testing feature on ClickFunnels particularly,
Okay.
it was an issue, to be honest with you. Like we actually advised against it because we would see bans, account bans, because they thought that Facebook basically thought that you were masking.
Yeah.
You're trying to mask your URL.
Yeah. So I'm ClickFunnels, but you recommend like I use ClickFunnels URLs, but through Google Optimize?
Yeah, actually. And so that's exactly right. Because to be honest with you, we can keep talking about that, but basically within ClickFunnels, one of the problems is if you have, let's say, you have two different sales pages, but one order form, your data is still going to be messed up because you're actually not going to know what came from where. So you would still need to use something like Google Optimize or two separate funnels if you want to be completely sure. I would recommend that.
Cool. Thanks.
Yep.
Quick nugget on
got
that, Ethan, would be like sometimes if you have redirects like baked in from your ad links directly to your destination URL, that's going to cause CPM.
That's
issues,
exactly right. Yep. That's exactly right.
So for anyone who's doing that as well, like if you have redirects in your funnels, like advise against that. That will most likely have a CPM issue as well.
Yep. So you want to test multiple times per month. Okay. So 2 if you're doing everything yourself. We typically do at least 4 per month, sometimes more, sometimes a little less, just depending on it. But it's in general, it's at least 4 per month. At your disposal, you want to use a dev, so developer, designer, and copywriter. That's if you aren't any one of those 3 things, or if you're all of those things, you're a legend then. That's great. Devs are critical, so you can ensure the tests work on all devices, and you can get more creative with tests. So you can start, again, rearranging menus, which we're going to talk about. You start doing a lot more cool stuff. Okay. Again, in terms of infrastructure, test larger changes first, then figure out why it worked after. I don't care about red versus green initially. Get something that is working really, really well first, and then double back and figure out which one of those elements was more important. Last thing with it, again, use Google Optimize and Google Analytics. You don't need it. Just 80-20 it. If you find yourself needing those other things, then go do it after. But don't go out and buy new shoes to make you work out. It's like just start working out. All right. Okay, let's talk about picking some split tests. I guess real quick, anything else that you guys have before we move on to this in terms of questions? Is everything good so far? Do you want me to go faster or slower? Is it all making sense? Are we good pacing wise?
I think you're good pacing wise from my side. Yeah.
All right, good. Good. Okay, so we need to have a framework about how to think of what to test, right? Because the thing with split testing is it's a lot like ads, where if somebody says, oh, like Will, for example, like if you would tell somebody, hey, listen, do some creative testing. You're gonna be like, well, I could make a million different ads. What should I do? How should I think about it? Right? It's the same thing with split testing. So how do you think about what to test? We look for 3 things: a high potential positive impact, a high likelihood of improvement, and the ease of implementation. There's some other frameworks that you can use, but I like this one because again, my bias is I would rather have a much higher performing landing page or a much higher performing homepage, etc., and then figure out why it worked after. Okay. Okay. So high potential positive impact. Let's talk about this. So we need a page that has a significant amount of traffic because we're looking for a high potential positive impact to our bottom line, right? If you have a page that gets 100 visitors per month, who cares, right? Don't even worry about it because it's like, what, you're going to get 1 more purchase per month? It doesn't matter. So it needs to have a significant amount of traffic. You need to have a high potential positive impact to your conversion rate. Again, high potential positive impact to your average order value, and high potential for increasing incremental revenue. So a good example, right, would be redesigning and rewriting a bad product page that has a lot of traffic. Interesting. But if it gets 50% of your traffic and it's really bad, then that means that there's a lot of potential improvement. If your page is like, was written by, Ogilvy himself, then it's probably not going to get a whole lot better. You see what I'm saying? And again, we're talking about the potential to double conversion rate, to double average order value, to increase earnings per session by 20 or 30%. This is the potential. It's the absolute potential increase that we could get. Now, let's talk about the second one, the likelihood of any improvement at all. So we could swing for the fences on this, but it could be something where it's like, listen, I have no idea whether this is going to work way better or way worse. Don't know. That would have a high potential positive impact, but it's probably going to have a low likelihood of impact by your estimates. So this is the estimated probability that our test makes any improvement, no matter how small or large. So for example, if you're talking about the above the fold portion of your PDP, if you want to make that very mobile friendly, it has a high likelihood of improvement, right? It's probably going to improve your conversion rate. Is it going to improve it by a ton? Who's to say? It depends on the changes that you make. But if you're going to focus on one place, that's the place that you would focus for a likelihood of improvement. Another example, testing a time relevant headline on an already converting homepage has a high likelihood of improvement, but not necessarily a high potential impact. All right, it's just a headline. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. So if you guys see the difference between those two, again, small distinction, but pretty important as you start to think about your split tests. Finally, ease of implementation. If we have a high likelihood of improvement, but it takes us a year to implement, it's probably not worth it. All right. There are probably other tests that have a similar high likelihood of improvement and a high potential improvement that are implementable within a day. So another example, we're going to use the same example. Headline testing your homepage is very easy to implement, extremely easy. All right. So in conclusion, combining these three gets us the highest likelihood of having a statistically significant test. What we don't want is we don't want random variation to account for, to be able to rather account for a difference. If you run a test to 100 sessions on variant 1 and variant 2, and one gets 5 purchases and one gets 6, you do not have enough data to make a statistically significant call one way or the other, right? That's just random variation. The way that you can always explain this is if you flip a coin 3 times, there's a 1 in 8 chance that you get heads, right? If you flip a coin 1,000 times, it is exceedingly unlikely that you're going to get heads all 1,000 times, right? It's 1 over 2 to the 100th power or 1,000th power. All right, so not going to happen. Basically, there are 2 ways to get significant results. If you have a small data set, there needs to be a very large change. If you have a large data set, you can afford a smaller change to get a significant result. And that's without turning this into like a statistics lecture. Okay, so let's talk about what to test. I like to think of tests in 2 types and kind of 2 different flavors of testing. We have copywriting and direct response. So reworking the offer, copy, messaging, product descriptions, right? This is including more benefit and results-driven language rather than features. It's focusing more on the consumer rather than the brand. This is kind of your standard like copywriting stuff, okay? The second flavor of testing is user experience, removing distracting elements, making sure the text is legible, removing friction to purchase. And again, oftentimes these lines will blur. On your page, you want to have both of these things be the best that they could possibly be, but it doesn't magically happen. You have to test your way to get there. All right. Here's your steps, quick and dirty, of how to start split testing. You pick your most highly trafficked pages. You find the one that is, like, in your opinion, the worst, right? The one that has the most room for conversion improvement. We'll talk about what some of those elements are in a bit. And then you want to make large changes to copywriting / direct response principles, and then the user experience of the page to make sure that it is usable and easy. We're going to talk about, again, some of those changes that you can make here in a bit. Okay, example, here's a homepage split test. Again, this is the one that we looked at earlier. These are the results from it. You can see $1 increase per session. So 1 divided by 5, roughly a 20% increase in per session value. All right, this is what your results will look like inside of Google Analytics. So you can see 208 conversions versus 191. We have a higher conversion rate and a higher average order value, leading to our higher earnings per session. Right. Then here you can see this is, so Google Optimize uses Bayesian, however you want to say it, inference rather than the old way, a frequentist approach, which if you guys took any statistics classes, that's what you used, right? So Google Optimize uses things like given the time of year, given the newness effect. That's why, in a lot of ways, Optimize, the interpretation of their probability to be best is just that. Whereas in the old way, if you use like an A/B test calculator and you get a p-value, or you get a confidence interval, or you get, oh, I'm 94% confident that version 1 would beat version 2. That does not mean that it's 94% better. It does not mean that it is 94% likely to be better, right? That's not what it means. It's the likelihood in repeated trials that you would disprove the null hypothesis, which is a much harder interpretation than what Google uses, which is, oh, this has a 94% probability to be better. That's what it means. All right. So just to kind of clear that up, the interpretation of Google Optimized results are pretty much just what they say. So again, let's look at version 1 of this homepage versus version 2. Okay. Version 1, it's not coffee, it's cacao. New limited edition varieties are here, right? The second the second section here has introducing CRO brewed cacao, right? So I'm going to save my analysis here for the end. I'll let you guys kind of get a little bit of sense of this. Here's some of the features. Here's some of the reviews. And here's what was next. All right. Now, what do we notice about this page? It's focusing on the brand, not the consumer. It's not really speaking to benefits or outcomes, right? I don't see a benefit or outcome here. It's not coffee, it's cacao, right? Introducing brewed cacao. Nobody on their first look, no one's really reading this. They're seeing the logos, right? So now we see, okay, cool. So there's social proof, but from my opinion, I still don't really know like what's the benefit of this. I don't really get it. All right. The products look very small, right? So again, imagine this on mobile. Looks small. You can't really see it. Again, don't really know what it is. I don't see the experience of it. I don't get what this feels like. I don't know the benefit of it. I don't see, is this a new morning routine? I don't see, is this helping me with quick coffee, right? Et cetera, which it does. And not pictured here is information for a customer to make a buying decision is missing. Shipping, return policy, et cetera. Right. Now let's talk about some of the changes. So this bubble, ignore this. This was me recording a video based on this. And so I grabbed a screenshot from this. All right. So the changes that we see here, again, to be honest with you, is this headline going to win any awards? No. And actually a second variation test, we increase earnings per session further just by changing this headline, right? Because even still, summer's must-have beverage. Okay, cool. It's relevant to the time. I know that it's a must-have, but I still don't exactly know, what I'm getting. I do see that in the sub-headline. Longer lasting, honest energy. If you like coffee, you'll love brewed cacao. Okay, cool. I get it a little bit more, but even still, this is not going to win any awards by any stretch of the imagination. We are starting to paint the picture though, which is this was run in July. So it's really hot out. We want a nice beverage, right? We want a cold. Cool. Brews like coffee, tastes like heaven. Okay, cool. One of the big things is people use this product to stop drinking coffee and they drink cacao. All right. Very simple. So that's something that people want to know. And finally, we have a much larger, a much higher priced product that we're showcasing on the homepage. Okay. Again, I'm going to start to go through this a little bit quicker, guys, because I want to make sure to get you guys some specific split tests that you guys can run and do some site audits. And I know that we have about 20 more minutes, so I'm going to speed through this a little bit faster. So again, new headline focuses on a benefit. Again, we split tested this after. It focuses on the consumer. We're not focused on the brand. Nobody cares about your brand at first. They might with time, but at first they care about what's in it for me. And then it showcases a higher AOV product. This led to higher AOV and higher conversion rate. For this brand, the earnings per session was 19.8% increase. Conversion rate increased by 6%. AOV increased by 13%. Interesting. Our hypothesis with this was that the new homepage would increase conversion rate and may or may not increase AOV. If you look here, the AOV improvement was actually better than the conversion rate improvement. The projected monthly incremental revenue from this is nearly $12,000 every single month
144 grand.
for doing nothing. Not nothing, but you get what I'm saying. This test took maybe 5 days to implement from top to bottom, complete redesign and rewrite of the homepage. I think just let it sit there, right? So pretty simple. Let's talk about some conversion rate killers. So add these in and test these immediately for quick wins. If you're missing any of these, add them in and look at your pages. There's a very high likelihood that you are. Frequently asked questions, social proof, product in use images, shipping info, returns and refund info. This is a big thing. People want to know, if I buy this thing, can I get my money back? All right. Benefits, not just features. No one cares about features at first. They care about what's the benefit of it. Desire and outcome-based copy, consumer-focused copy, and customer stories. If you're missing any of these, split test them and add them in. All right. So again, a lot of this stuff, to be honest with you, is not rocket science. But you're so far in the weeds of the business that you miss it. Let's talk about UX quickly. So a bad user experience will lower conversion rate. A great user experience can help conversion rate. Again, my bias is towards the direct response copywriting side of things, but the UX has just as large of an improvement, if not more at times. We're going to go through that quickly. So some quick tips on this. Remember, mobile first, design for mobile, not for desktop. All right. Let me clarify that a little bit better. Design for mobile first and then desktop second. All right. Most of your sessions, most of your users are going to be on mobile. It's just a fact. Heat mapping is really useful, whether you use Hotjar, Lucky Orange, etc. This is where you can see elements that people are not clicking, elements that people are clicking. You can watch people on session and recordings. It's really cool. The bottom line is you want to remove barriers and confusion to purchase. An easy thing to do is give your site to your parents, grandparents, somebody who doesn't know your brand at all, and see where they get tripped up. Just watch them. So illegible font, small font, right? Bad menu placement, which we're going to talk about here in a second. Non-clickable elements that people think are clickable, distracting pop-ups, images that are too large or too small, slow loading pages. All right, these are all things that are going to inhibit the user experience, therefore inhibiting your conversions. So let's look at a real UX experience, a real UX split test that we ran. This menu, the hypothesis was this menu is distracting to users. It's just floating. So anytime you're scrolling, it's just there, right? In theory, it's pretty annoying. So what we did was move this up here to a standard hamburger menu. Again, hypothesis is distracting users, causing frustration and ultimately lowering conversion. Well, here are the results. Earnings per session increased by 6 cents. All right. So again, 30-ish% increase in revenue per session, 95% probability to be best. Sounds great to me, right? Now, here's where it gets interesting. Look at the calculated e-commerce conversion rate.
Interesting. That is
The before version actually performed better. So what happened? Let's look. Earnings per session increased by 31.5%. Conversion rate actually was slightly down, roughly flat. All right. What happened was our average order value increased. Why did our average order value increase? Well, if you think about it, in this case, people probably found the product that they were using and then were so annoyed by the site or so annoyed by this menu that they just checked out. That's likely what happened. The thing is, we never actually know for sure why something happened because we aren't the users and we can't ask all 52,000 of them why. And even if we could, they wouldn't know, right? But we can start to backfill in some of the story here. Okay.
Ethan,
and again,
can you touch on this question real quick? What's your minimum session amount to allow for statistical significance?
Yep. So it definitely does depend. So it depends on your difference. If you have 100% conversion rate from your control and a 0% conversion rate from your variant, you need a lot less data in general. But you wanted 1,000 would kind of be the minimum for sure.
1,000 click test. I was hoping you were going to say that.
Oh, great. There you go. See, that's we're test. In a lot of cases, we don't even need to we think the same way, don't even know it, don't even realize it, you know?
Yep.
So yeah, that's exactly what you it's about 1,000. Davis is cute. That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay. tips and tricks, test everything. When I say test everything, I don't mean test every iteration. I mean, make sure that you split test this. Use Google Optimize. This will happen in a lot of cases where people will say, oh, well, I know it's going to have an increase in conversion rate, so we might as well just implement it. You don't know that. There have been times, this happens all the time, where I think, oh man, this is going to have a much better conversion rate, or this is going to have a way better AOV or increased earnings per session. And it doesn't, even though from a principle standpoint, it is better. What works in the wild does not always work in the textbook or in theory. Okay. So do not randomly implement this stuff. Test it first. Okay. I want to really like asterisk that because I don't want people, in 2 weeks saying like, oh, Ethan, my conversion rate tanked. It's like, well, again, the same reason why we split tested is if you start sending, clicks from, I don't know, Antarctica to your site, it's not going to convert. So traffic quality plays a big part in this. Split test everything. Okay. Again, you do want to try to give 14 days of data here. Really, it's kind of like a business cycle is how you want to think about it. So if your Tuesdays are really good days and then Fridays, or let's say Sundays are really bad days, and you run a split test from Monday to Saturday, you miss a day of data, which users could be different. So 14 days is again a typical test you would want to run for in terms of timing, but it's not always possible. Sometimes you're running a sale for 7 days and you want to split test your homepage, right? Well, you only have 7 days, so that's fine, but you're probably gonna need a lot of traffic though, which is good. So good rule of thumb, you should be winning 50% of your tests. If you're winning more than that, you're not being risky enough with your testing. So you're missing a lot of big potential increases. Okay. Your lost tests are mitigated. They're mitigated to 14 days maximum, right? You could shut it off after 7 days if you want. So you have a mitigated loss versus an unmitigated potential gain. So your losses are for 7 days, your gains could be for the next 3 years. That's why if you're winning like 90% of your tests, like don't worry about losing tests, I guess is the point to make. Because you might lose $150 in potential revenue over the course of a week, but you could gain $4,000 per month in potential revenue, which is going to be $50K for the year. By the way, that was the projected monthly impact on this was about $6K for this menu test. I forgot to say that. This is from switching a menu. This literally took about an hour to implement, right? You can track your test ideas and results in a Google Sheet. It doesn't need to be fancy. Again, the biggest takeaway from this that I would say is for you guys to start testing. Rapid fire time if you have any questions. And then if not, we can start looking at some of your guys' sites if you want. If you want to throw a URL in or share your screen or however you want to do it.
Yeah, feel free to throw those in the chat, or if you want to unmute to ask Ethan a specific question, whether it's about your funnel, your lander, etc. If it's about what tests you should run, etc. Feel free to unmute or throw those in the chat, and then I can tee Ethan up as well.
I got a quick one.
Go for it.
Sure. What's up, man?
So Ethan, one of the biggest questions I've always had in regards to split testing is when we're doing like big tests on the lander front or the Shopify site or whatever, and you're balancing that out with, let's say, Will's approach to creative testing, like, do you back off on the aggression of lander tests when you're testing heavy on the Facebook front? Because from my view, like if you're testing radical new headlines, like the ripple effects on the Facebook side could influence the AOV and all that stuff. Like, how do you ever get truly accurate data if you're aggressively testing on both Facebook ad side and testing new headlines on the landers and things like that?
Sure. Well, let's look at the homepage as an example. Oh, let's just use a homepage test. The truth of the matter is you're never going to get 100% accurate data. It's just not possible, right? We're using inference to make predictions based on a sample size of data. That being said, though, the reason why you want to use something like Google Optimize is in general, you're going to split your traffic 50-50. So all the variation that you're going to get from Facebook ads day to day, in theory is going to come out in the wash once they get to your homepage. So if you're testing, let's say that you're testing really low quality click traffic. All right. If you're testing low quality click traffic and it's coming to your site, what we care about is the relative difference between the control and the variant. So 19 cents per session versus 30 cents per session. You're like, oh, well, it's only 30 cents per session. Who cares? It doesn't matter. what matters is the difference between the 19 cents and the 30 cents, which is 11 cents. So it's actually over a 50% difference. So using something like Google Optimize, you're going to control for all those different variables, your traffic quality, you're going to control for all the different tests that you're running within Facebook ads. Now, again, to like provide some more clarity there, if half of your ads are saying, stock up before winter, and the other half of your ads are saying like summer sale, and you're sending to a homepage that is talking all about summer, it's like, okay, well, that's probably going to be causing a little bit of an issue. But again, the reason why you use Google Optimize is because you're still probably going to be splitting half of that traffic, right? 50-50. So you're still probably actually going to get reasonable results. It may not be the best thing to do from a conversion perspective, but from a data interpretation perspective, you actually should be fine.
Well, and to back you up on that as well, and I think that's where your point of why statistical significance and your 14-day cycle is the important part of that, as well as it takes into consideration those fluctuations.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
Did that help, Luke?
Yeah, it kind of like half answered it. I guess what I think what I'm taking away is like, it's the best we can do. Like if you're testing,
it's never gonna be perfect.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like my main concern was just like radically new angles on the Facebook side. Like if you're coming at, like, for example, I sell lion's mane. Let's say I'm doing like heavy on like, this is going to promote memory. Some ads are saying this is going to help with focus. That could radically influence the AOV. And I guess what I'm trying to figure out is like, it seems like a little too many variables if we're testing different headlines as well. But what I'm hearing is it's like, we're just doing the best we can using.
So in
like
that case, though,
Optimize.
it would be controlled for, though. It would be controlled for, because half of your, let's say that memory versus, what was the other one? Focus. That's ironic there. I couldn't remember what you said, so maybe I need your supplement that. So memory versus focus. Let's say that memory has a lot higher AOV than focus, right? Well, if that's the case, then half of our traffic is going to be going to version A, half of it is going to be going to version B. So your high AOV, half of the high AOV traffic is going to version A, half of the low AOV traffic is going to version A as well. You see what I'm saying? So it ends up canceling out in general, but it's not always perfect. I do see what you're saying in terms of congruence, though, because if you're talking all about memory in ads, and then you're testing focus homepage A versus focus homepage B, that's not going to be helpful for conversions. You know what I mean? So you do want to have kind of like the bird's eye view of everything and make sure that you're testing angles that make sense.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Just, give it its best shot by trying to keep the congruence while you're testing radical stuff. That makes sense.
Exactly. It's okay for it to be imperfect.
Cool. Awesome, man. Appreciate it.
Who else has questions? Feel free to unmute, drop it in the chat.
Yeah, I got one.
Go ahead,
So,
David.
Considering for e-commerce that majority of the traffic that we're sending is to PDPs, do you have like I suppose a checklist or best approach practice for split testing PDPs?
Yeah, for sure. In terms of elements that you'd want to include on your PDP, or in terms of like how to split test your PDPs.
Both, really, I suppose.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So
I mean,
we do actually, I can send it over to you guys if you want.
Yeah, elements to include on the PDPs, I suppose, is pretty. That's pretty standard. Yeah, that's pretty standard stuff there. So I suppose just the split testing process. Yeah.
Cool. So what we'd want to do is again, most of your traffic is going to be focusing on above the fold. If you're already using something heat mapping like Hotjar, or you're using something like Lucky Orange or what have you, look to see the elements on the page where people are not interacting with that could just be distractions, or that people think are clickable and are not clickable. Remove them. Removing stuff from pages, removing distracting elements is just as, if not more valid than adding stuff. We always want to think to add stuff, but removing stuff is just as valid and can lead to higher conversion. So look for that. The second thing is focus above the fold. So if you want to be looking at your images, does your image, this is a really key thing, does your image paint the picture of the experience of using your product? What is your product? Your main PDP that you send traffic to?
Supplements, sports supplements.
Supplements. Okay, there you go. So perfect. Is that main picture just a generic, on a white background, the pill bottle, right? Or the supplement bottle? If it is, we want to test that, because we're going to be talking about what is the experience that somebody's going to get. What is that outcome that somebody's going to get? What's their desired outcome? Second thing, start adding some more descriptive words to your product title, and test that, or your headline, or to your product description. It's focus on the above the fold and focus on mobile. That's the first thing that I would tell you to do. And I would do so by really looking at direct response stuff. So does your headline say, 60 count pill bottle, right? If it does, if your product title says that and your headline says that, we want to split test that, because that's not really what it is, right? What's the benefit that people are getting?
Sure. Understood.
Focus on above the fold, because that's where just most of the eyeballs are going. That's what I would say. Focus on images, focus on experience, and see where people are getting tripped up.
So Ryan was kind of asking about that. He said, how do you gauge the success of any segment after 50% scroll depth? We have found that after 50%, there's such few sessions making it past that to make it significant.
Yep. Well, there you go.
That goes back to your earlier point though, probably,
Yeah,
right? Like
the answer's in there, which is exactly that. Scroll depth is huge because so few people see it. So few people go down to that next part of the page that it's going back to how to actually think about what to split test. If that is going to have a low potential impact, it's not going to really worth testing. Right. So don't, you kind of, the answer to the question is in the question, sort of.
Yep. Yeah. Good point. Anybody else have any questions, or does anyone want Ethan to have a look at their lander and we can tear one apart here real quick before we wrap up today?
Yeah, if you guys want,
I have
I'd
a
love
really
to.
how-to question, Ethan.
Go for it.
I do mostly Facebook ads. I think a lot of us in here do Facebook ads. We can't change the URL on our ads. Do you use a specific tool to run split tests without changing the URL on ads, on paid ads?
Google Optimize. So Google Optimize, all you got to do is you literally just have to say, when URL matches whatever URL you want, apply these changes. That's it.
Okay, cool, easy.
It's
And
really,
so
really
it's-
cool.
In short, it's handled in Google Optimize, right? Is what you're saying.
That's exactly
Ethan?
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really?
Facebook, literally, you don't even have to, they're completely divorced. They're separate, right? There's
great.
nothing to even, they don't even have anything to do with each other, which is cool. They can though, because you can do some really cool stuff, like some personalization tests. So when a UTM is a certain thing, you can show them something else, right? For example, if you want. So, if UTM equals US, you can be like, your homepage headline could say, we ship to America.
Okay, great, very good, thank you.
So Ryan, no, we hit that as well earlier. We did not. So did you get hit with circumventing systems, or what was the ban reason?
Ryan, if you're there.
Circumventing systems. And was it immediately after you did a redirect test? 3 days.
That's
Do you
interesting,
normally
too.
face ad disapproval issues? No, like your ads never get disabled or anything like that. Did your page get restricted? Okay, so that's why. So like last month, there were a bunch of people who had page restrictions. And a lot of the people, we had clients who had page restrictions as well, and people who weren't using Optimize or anything like that. So that was kind of a little bit of a last month issue. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, probably more of a bug than anything else there.
Yeah. Will, did you guys see that a lot? hear about
I
it a
mean,
lot
to
last
be
month?
honest, actually, we only saw it on a couple of accounts. We didn't really get hit like in this last string with any client accounts, or really even there's a couple
Nice.
of people in the group. I personally got hit again about like 3 months ago, but like was able to get it back. But I got hit with like what was the policy for like Paul, you might remember, because I remember talking to you about it. Human trafficking. I got hit with the human trafficking policy violation. I was like,
Wow.
okay, cool. Yeah. So, yeah, guys, that stuff just happens from time to time. I would say, to reaffirm what Ethan, Will was trying to kidnap me, Paul said.
Will turns humans into traffic. He doesn't
Yeah.
traffic humans.
There you go. Oh man. Yeah. Just be mindful of your redirects overall. Like if you're not
Yeah.
using, optimize is what Ethan was saying, and that's where you could really kind of run into some issues.
Yep.
So cool. Well, does anybody have any more questions before we wrap it up for today? This was a great session.
I got one more, but if somebody else wants to go, because I've been hogging a lot of screen time.
Does anybody else got one before Luke jumps in there? All right, Luke, it's your floor.
Cool. So I've got a funnel. It's like a classic TSL, like ClickBank 5 years ago before all the VSLs. It's a supplement funnel. I got a 1, 3, and 6 pack. Each of them have their own kind of separate funnel. So I've looked into VWO. It seems to have the abilities to separate out the funnels and do all the tests on each checkout page, et cetera. Curious if you've ran into any issues with VWO, like redirects, Facebook not liking it or anything like that, because I'm just trying to be super cautious because I've been banned a couple times because my mushroom supplements is kind of sensitive. So I just don't want to do anything to upset Facebook.
So this is where like I want to be really careful with what I tell you. In theory, you should be good. You shouldn't have to worry about it, right? In theory.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is going to be, I'm taking a little bit of a cop out here. I don't want to tell you that it's 100% not going to present a problem. It shouldn't though. Like it should not at all. You should be completely good. But I want to be like, oh man, Luke, you're good to go. Go do it. And then you come back to me next week and you go, man, Ethan, like I got my account disabled. I'm like, I feel bad. So it should be good, right? If you want to be really safe, then test it in a separate account and everything like that. But you should be okay to do it. It shouldn't be an issue. Hey, one thing that just since you said that, one split test idea I have for you is differing the pre-selection. So if you said you have 1, 3, 6, right? So split test selecting 1 versus 3 versus 6 as the default selection.
Typically will increase AOV.
Exactly.
Yeah. May decrease conversion rate, but typically will increase AOV and EPS as well.
That's exactly right.
Are you talking on like a drop down? Because we have it like it shows it's like buy 6 bottles, best value. Then you scroll down and it's like buy 3 bottles. So they get to like choose.
So
does that make sense?
I guess, are you using ClickFunnels?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then if somebody clicks buy now on 3, it will take them to a different order form. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they go to a 3-pack funnel.
Gotcha.
Checkout process. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So this would apply more to like a Shopify thing if it's pre-selecting already. But yeah, it could be same principle on ClickFunnels with the dropdown. It'd be the same thing.
Cool.
Another thing I have for you on ClickFunnels though, if you don't use a 2-step checkout, split test that, because we've seen that really reduce checkout abandonment on ClickFunnels.
Yeah, we're using that and it definitely helped. But I'm going to use the pre-selection tip on my Shopify site because the way I have it is like all PPC traffic goes through ClickFunnels, but I have a Shopify site for reorders and all that.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Cool, man.
Sweet, man.
That's good.
Yeah, this is super valuable. I appreciate your time. This has been gold.
Thanks for jumping on.
Perfect. Ethan, want to thank you.
Man, thank you.
Great session for sure. A lot of value. How can the guys or the gals, anyone who's on the call, get in touch with you if they're interested to learn more about CRO for their stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So basically, if you guys want, all you got to do is book a link or book a call here with us here. We'll basically just give you 3 split test ideas. We can go through all your sites, pages, etc. Make a note that you guys came from Will's group. We'll make sure to take care of you, of course. Not a sales call. We're pretty much just here to give you guys value. But if we do think that we could help you and you guys want to learn more, there's a money back guarantee with everything. Will increase your incremental revenue or give your money back. Here's the link for it. I can give it to Will. He can post it.
Yeah, and I'm
apologize.
gonna post the quick wins. I took a screenshot of it. I'm gonna post the quick wins tests in the group for everybody as well. So you
Awesome.
guys could start working on those too, and I'll share the link here also. Perfect.
Fantastic. That's all I
stuff.
got, guys. I hope it wasn't too rushed, I guess. We went fast, but I know you guys are having
Yeah,
it,
we'll
so.
we'll definitely have you back for another, maybe we could do another one in a few months or like 90 days or so and get us prepped for Q1 or something like that. We can kind of
Exactly.
work on this a little bit.
Yeah, or we could even do a session of like a like a tear down kind of audit session,
That's a good idea,
thing.
actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
why don't
everybody just
we,
kinda comes
for
with-
everybody too, like we'll try to set up just a straight audit session and we'll just jam with Ethan, and I think that would actually be really good too.
Great.
Cool.
This is a ton of fun. You guys are